What's up, everybody? Welcome to Sleep Atomic, and let's get right into it. In this VOD, we're going to discuss The Last of Us Episode 8, When We Are in Need. And luckily, I wasn't doing these immediately after the episode airs, so I definitely needed some time away from thinking about any of that stuff. It was gross, cringy to the most brutal thing ever, and then ending on a emotional note again. And when I mean gross, cringy, it was like kind of scary, but like that's probably the most normal thing you'll say about it. The horror part definitely like showed out of that part. At least if you like group things together like in your head, like category wise, and with the scenes like all like I don't even want to say chopped up, but all of it was well constructed for each of the emotional payoffs or the reactionary payoffs. And even saying payoff kind of seems like wrongly associated. Maybe I should say like emotional like draws, like it being drawn for you from you, and then draw like a revolver or like shootout. They just like shot you with it. Oh, it's like, oh goodness. So much wincing, and then like you get those like internal feelings like you're like almost about to cry, or like your eyeballs are like gonna pop out of your head or something like that. I was like vicariously like with Ellie, like she got some injury like later into it, and I'm like, oh, at least with how she would like physically feel. Like emotionally, it would be like, oh well, you should probably just let the show do what it was made for. But at least getting into the first point of like Ellie kind of like stumbling on to why Joel is the way Joel is, and kind of like Joel's first steps like out in the open world with the infected and the cordyceps and everything. Just because you know that this is not the first time that would happen, and it wouldn't be the last. You can like almost like superimpose like what Ellie's doing at first. Like maybe Tommy like overexerted himself or like rolled his ankle or something like that, and Joel had to go out by himself and like fend for Tommy. It's something I really noticed like thinking back to it. It's like, oh well, that's probably like everyone's like first steps to that, but with the images of Ellie's face like several times through this episode, and just her now recently like learning about Joel and how they almost like split up at in I keep wanting to say Laramie. Oh, not last episode, 2 episodes ago, at least last time when we were fully like with Ellie, like and this point in time instead of the flashback. But in Jackson, Wyoming, she actually never really gets a alone time with Tommy, but she must have been like, oh, like they're kind of like not anything the same. Even like when Tess was around, like I, you didn't think even as me like trying to pretend to be there, they would have been like Maria and Tommy. Like Tommy like went back and like recaptured like this type of couple from like the uh before, like in 2003, like large member of the community and like almost like a sheriff or almost like a politician like couple, maybe a supervisor somewhere or runs some sort of business couple. But she learns like he's even crankier before, and now she learns firsthand like why he was like, well, is so gruff. She's like trying to get the food, and she's like trying to like just get it and go, but she's like letting herself like be reeled in. It's like, no, like neither you should have shot him or just avoided this whole thing. Like, and the fact that he was kind of like mockingly like, it's like, oh yeah, I'm over it, dude. Like, it's like this is now. Like, she's like letting other people do the compromising for her. But even as it goes, like she really was at no fault of her own, uh, because of her decisions. It was just like, oh well, it's just like the civilized thing to do, more or less. It's kind of like interesting how they did that too, because like there's like a progression of her opening her eyes to something, and there's like a degression of like uh the other people from the Silver Lake or whatever, Silver View, like closing up their like friendliness. It's just like those like greater than, less than, like carrots like pulled apart like really long, like under like the whole episode if you're like charting like the story like that, with the top and the bottom being like their own separate like views that we have of them. And the two parts closest to each other would be like the interaction, and like one's leading to a single point of, I don't even know what to say about it, but then like Ellie's is like you're like diverging at least twice, if not more times. Maybe like even like uh closing, they look kind of like mouths. They're like the little symbols above the comma and the period on the keyboard. Maybe I could put like a little picture, but Ellie at first is like holding a secret. She won't even like say her name, while the worst person ever is like saying like everything, like it's like not important. And then by the end, it's Ellie with, I'm not sure what happens or what the reaction would be after that, but Joel's at least there, and like they're like there for more of the story. And then the worst person ever is you learn about the most vile thing ever. No one would ever have to worry about that or do anything about that because, yeah, Ellie justifiably got rid of him. And I must say, it's a very turned up version of what I remember of that exact, I think, boss fight, or maybe it was like a stealth thing, but to purposely shy away from more serious things that I don't even want to like bother with. It's like, ugh, I was like, no, ugh. It's just like, no. And this is when I was starting to get interest in like other genre of games, like stories. Usually it was just like RPGs for me, but then they started like doing some like good ones, and I only have vague memories of them. But I remember afterwards, like you're like let out into like the woods, and like I think it was like a town like by the water or somewhere. I remember like the lighting; it was pretty good. The fire and everything happened as well. I wasn't adverse to like not playing the game and just like watching. It was about college time when people were playing this, so it was like supposed to be studying, and I kind of was, but the game was like one of the more uh reasonable ones, at least for like the characters. Like in my opinion, there was just like normal people not doing anything severely normal, but uh when I was paying attention, like Most of the time you would get the idea that it was like some sort of cataclysm or something bad happened and everyone's out on their own. It's something I'm kind of like noticing now. They're not like normal, but it's like they're like they're not a nobody, but they're like an anybody. Like you could kind of like almost like look in some direction if there's like a crowd of people and like see like about this person. Maybe not their personality, but it's like, oh yeah, like they seem like a person I've seen before. Like that James guy, like the main helper, but it was like only like the only other person that had any like uh anything to say to the worst person ever. I thought he was gonna have like more of a thing to be involved in at the end, but like he at least like didn't get stabbed by Joel. Or his like real favorite thing after he had a choice of like stuff was the stock of his gun or his rifle. Just like spamming that move, like pap, pap, pap. Like it was kind of like, man, that is pretty reasonable though. Of all the things he could do, I'm sure that was very ergonomic for him. Oh, Joel. I'll assume that you've already watched it, and even if you didn't, I'm sure it's vague enough for it to at least spark some interest or not spoil too much. But I wasn't even expecting Joel to like get up. Like when like Ellie was talking to him, I was like, oh well, I wouldn't be like too off put if it was just another Ellie episode. But how the episode felt, like I guess they couldn't really do that unless like they like had a new regular character be introduced. But I don't think they'll do that just because like there's not that many. I think this is like the last two episodes, and then that would just be a weird dynamic after that, just to change it up at the end of the season. The other way I wanted him to do it was like, oh well, he could just like surprise her while she's like doing something else. Like I was expecting him to be difficult, but not like give them like all this trouble. But then like they mentioned like they're the same people from 2 episodes ago from the university, and like that made you think even more about it. It's like, wow, like they weren't even like after like anything they were like lugging around. Probably he mentions like some people knew like where their food came from and why there was an ear on the ground, and just like, wow, that's oddly accurate. I started like thinking about like the Donner Party and stuff. I was like, that's strange. But then I was like, oh well, just me like guessing like more like psychological stuff and like maybe like medical stuff. But it's like that's probably like why most of his like group was like looking like they did. Like they like looked like a less adorable like looking basset hounds. They're all like wrinkly and like droopy. Even though I thought it would make you like kind of like uppity and kind of like crazy like doing what they did. And like the worst person ever, like the main guy from that group was like aware of it and like he was trying to like trying to make them like look at him like the way he wanted to, like I guess his correctly. Is like I was like all there was like all these like, oh like he's really off or like crazy or something like signs, but like just kind of like letting the story go on without even like looking in or thinking into it too much. Like right now with it not playing, I'm like, oh well, a lot of people do that, I guess. Like there was no reason for me to be like, oh, that's like he's kind of like off his rocker about that, huh? Well, all the while they're like not supposed to be like eating. Like I don't know if it's like a known like documented thing, but it's like yeah, like uh yeah, that's not gonna like make him feel like awesome. Man, like if it was like I want to say like if it was me, I'd be like my tongue and like sense of taste would just like know enough to be like no, don't even eat that. That's probably like at least like rotten or something. Like I would probably think like all those times I like tried to see if I could fudge like the expiration date on like my milk carton a little bit, but besides the two girls and the dude with the bat that got Joel, I don't see why like any of the other people would like ventured out to be like, oh, okay, well, I'm gonna go join another group of people instead of attacking them. And they like kind of like picked like a terrible place to be at. Like I would have rather like instead of like that, and I would just like gone to Federa at least. That's just like my personal feelings about doing a Donner Party 2 thing. But at least going off of my other uh video thing, I was labeling like each kind of like relationships that was like kind of like the tender of the episode. Like episode 7, like with Riley and like Ellie, it was like kind of like clear. It was like I don't know if this one's like strangers or like dangers. And there's obviously like no real relationship other than like your like view of them or opinion, but it's like, oh, okay, well, this is the general uh consensus or census of the strangers you might interact with, and you kind of have to go with the worst one you would like expect instead of like the uh more popular one or the minority stranger attitude. And I mean that's just like a general like thing about it. Like it's obviously different person to person, like how you would like treat and react to strangers. But at least in this world where cities were bombed and like there's like no real structure to the country. It's just more like countryside now instead of like a country with a government. So, yeah, I guess the next one would have to be the threat or enemy if stranger is just like neutral, like unknown person. Like even if you just go back one, like where they're like, oh, it's like a new person that was a stranger, and it's like friend, like interest, like romantic interest person. And then episode 6, even though some of that seemed like a argument, like a lot of different types of relationships had, like I would probably put that into like equals, like relationship, not like friends. But the episode was also called Kin, so and I talked about like what that kind of means and what they kind of do. And it only gets more like specific, but it's like ones that you didn't really get a choice in, like family and stuff like that. And closer to the now, like episode 8, it's like, oh, okay, well, it's like the ones you decide to participate in. And at this stage, we don't want anything from them, and we don't know anything about them. And then back over onto the family side, maybe like episode 2 or 1, you at least knew your like deal with them, like, but you could also like not know anything about your family members as well. But that was just like Marlene and Tess and that Joel from before. So Joel's been like graduating up, and then I guess he stopped graduating because he like uh finally hit Ellie with the daughter vibes, just, just with a I got you, baby girl. I was just like, oh damn. I I wish I could just like be like over there for like that. Like I guess I will be over there for that just so I can like pretend like that's me, like Joel saying that too. But it's kind of funny, like the whole time there's like everyone's like, "Oh yeah, your dad's like that's not my dad." Like that, it's just like a kind of like inside like low level like joke that where like that's happening like elsewhere. It's supposed to be just like, oh yeah, like whatever, like okay, I guess the kid's cool, like whatever, dude. Like, but it was just like a immediate like, oh well, it's about to be spring now. Like it's probably gonna melt all the snow there, and you just like watch them like walk into the distance. But I was thinking like maybe the big group of people would like do something, but it's like they're probably all like too weak to even like bother. Like I'm surprised like those dudes with the beards even got as far as they did. But I'm pretty ready for them to see the main immediate like I guess human threat. Not that they haven't even like run into that. Especially with Kathleen like in the back there like of our memories. They definitely ran into someone like that. But it's like is it gonna be Firefly? Is it or is it gonna be like a less apparent thing like uh still in Firefly probably like that's where my head's going, but with how it's going, like it doesn't look like they're ever gonna find Firefly. I just want them to go back to Jackson or wherever Tommy is and just like have something happen there, but it's kind of boring set wise and they haven't been boring with the set, so I'm not sure. Maybe like they'll jump some more time ahead to like a spring thing like I mentioned. Maybe like a fall, I guess, maybe even, but because like I guess the part with Tess could be kind of fall, and it's definitely winter right now, so it's spring or summer. But I guess it was pretty green in the hotel. But before I go on too long, just let me know what you think in the comments, and even if it's like the future and you already know what happens, you could at least like remember and just be like, oh, I thought this. But you could always add to the collage of the stuff for this episode and this show, metaphorically, of course. Unless you really made a collage, I would be happy to be wrong. But I'm Alistair, and I hope you join us for the last episode, or at least episode 9. I gotta check. And the discussion I'll have about that. Maybe like not the best thing to witness, but it's definitely like a heart filter right there. Like every time I think about it. But hey, you look good, and it shows.